only poisons or toxins cause withdrawal symptoms. And then people are going to eat food to stop the withdrawal from caffeine because we exacerbate detoxification. We enhance detoxification in the not eating state. So the caffeine withdrawal is going to increase in the not eating state, so you're going to feel more headache. And you're going to eat food to help reduce the caffeine withdrawal. So the caffeine not only is preventing you, not enabling you to sleep less, shortening your lifespan that way, but it's causing you to eat more. So in many cases, caffeine contributes to the toxic load in the body, leading to more with hunger, false hunger. And also it lets you feel like you can get by with less sleep, which also shortens your lifespan. So I'm giving the reasons why most people's diets don't work. And here's a study published in 2010 called The Changing Perceptions of Hunger on a High Nutrient Density Diet, studying the effects of this way of eating on about 750 people. And we showed that after 6 months, 90% of those people had a changed perception of hunger, that they initially described their hunger like it's affecting their stomach and their head. And after 6 months, the hunger was more felt in their throat and obviously in their mouth with salivation, increased taste sensation, and upper chest or lower neck sensation of a drawing sensation that's kind of like makes you want to eat. And food tastes better when you eat when you're really hungry. And these people reported not only did their sensation of what they considered hunger change when they ate so healthfully, but their preference for healthy food changed because their taste muscle improved and they became desirous of vegetables and enjoying flavors of natural food more. And their bliss point went down. In other words, they didn't require so much sugar to feel satisfied. They were satisfied with things being a lower level of sugar, like a strawberry isn't sweet enough for most people. But once you're in a blueberry, it's not, or they don't taste the sweetness in lettuce, but in other words, the strength of your taste changes over time to get stronger, to like natural foods that aren't heavily seasoned and hyper palatable. And also, you become satisfied with the right amount of calories, with lower amounts of calories. So you're satisfied with the food more, you enjoy the flavor more, and you feel like you're eating enough food when you're actually eating so much less than you used to eat. I always say that humans or Americans live on half of what they eat, and the other half meets the needs of their doctors, right? Half of the calories you eat meet your needs, and the other half meets the needs of your doctors. And it sounds kind of like an exaggeration, like a joke, but it's not really an exaggeration or a joke, because we're healthiest amount of calories for women and males are somewhere between 1,200 and 1,800 calories a day, around 1,400 for a woman, maybe about 1,600 for a male. Or, we're talking, every person's different. I have no specific amount of calories I want people to eat. But I know that Americans are eating about 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day. The average American eats about 3,600 calories a day. That's double what humans even eat, because we can compare that to the amount of calories consumed in rural China, which is about 1,500-1,600 calories a day per capita. And here where per capita calorie consumption is almost double that. So extra calories are exceedingly dangerous, and extra body fat is exceedingly dangerous. And we can prefer to eat less. We can learn how to prefer to eat less, but it takes time to prefer that. So let's review a little bit what we've been talking about here, because we're talking about the overstimulation of dopamine in the brain that leads to food cravings. There's no such thing as food cravings in people who don't have the overstimulation or deadening of dopamine. And then cravings means you're not satisfied with normal foods. You can't have a salad, a bowl of vegetable bean soup, and a piece of fruit. You just had a big meal with a lot of fiber and your stomach's filled, but you're not even though you filled up your stomach and you might even feel full, you're not satisfied. You got to crave something else. You got to have something else. You got to have a piece of cake. You got to have some bread. You got to have some kind of, something fried. You got to have some dessert. You got to have something. It's not satisfied with normal food. And the cravings come from overstimulation of dopamine. And then, so that's why, and when you have that, you're a food addict. And then you have withdrawal symptoms. You have fatigue and headache if you don't eat. And instead of embracing withdrawal symptoms and realizing that's your body healing, you'll either eat food or people want to take a pill. They want to pop a Tylenol or an aspirin. In other words, I'm saying here that the suppression of symptoms with drugs makes you more toxic and can make an occasional headache into a chronic daily headache, or a severe headache syndrome into a migraine syndrome, because you suppress the occasional headache with a detox event with dangerous drugs. Even the use of 1 or 2 Tylenol or Advil a week can create chronic headache, can create a chronic migraine syndrome. And then a person, of course, gets chronic neuroinflammation from the overstimulation of the brain, from the glucose surges and the extra calories, also create chronic brain fog where they're no longer thinking as clearly, weaken taste buds, and they're emotionally dependent on dangerous food, and they behave and think irrationally and destructive to their own best interests. And they can become destructive to other people too. They don't care about themselves. They don't care about others. They just care about meeting their fix. The more you're an addict and the more severe you're an addict, the more narcissistic your behavior becomes and the more self-consumed you becomes, and the outside world doesn't matter to you and your future health doesn't even matter to yourself. Why do people behave in a self-destructive fashion? Why do they do things they know are damaging to their health? It's because the primitive brain has a desire. It creates that removal of dopamine and this toxic stimulation of the body. This years of developing this toxic body makes you feel too agitated and anxious when you try not to imbibe in addictive substances. But I'm encouraging you to strive for enforced abstinence, not to baby step your way into healthy eating, to jump with both feet into a super healthy diet and go through that withdrawal. It only takes 3 or 4 days to get back in touch, to feel good immediately. Because the first phase of detoxification, where you're feeling this hands fatigued and headaches and agitation, it goes away. If you keep dabbling in healthy eating, you keep yourself feeling sick all the time, and you never really get to how good you're going to feel from eating healthfully. My years and decades of treating so many thousands of people, having more than 10,000 charts on people, have shown me that the people that have sustained 100-pound weight losses and kept it off for a decade or more, all these people who've lost lots of weight and kept it off successfully, were people who embraced this healthy way of eating in a more complete form. They didn't dabble in it or do it 90% or 80%. Those people doing it 90% or 80% often fail and go back to unhealthy eating again. Or they're still keeping that foot connected with unhealthy substances, which never really lets their taste fully adapt to enjoying this as much. And they still, in the dabbling in those unhealthy substances, keeps that flame alive, keeps that addictive fire lit, always wanting those things. So my book, Eat to Live, written in 2004 and updated in 2011, doesn't really contain the same, I could say, viewpoints I hold today. Because I gave a really healthy diet, or the healthiest diet, in the first 6 weeks. But then in those books, I allowed people to play around with 5 or 10% of calories that weren't that healthy, as long as they ate 90% of the healthy stuff. I no longer think that way. Because even though a person living healthy their whole life theoretically could eat 90 or 95% really healthy and still be pretty healthy, it doesn't work in real life. That is an effect for all people. And most people fail doing that, because they keep dabbling in the unhealthy. That 5 or 10% of unhealthy substances they're consuming sucks them to be wanting those. That's like an alcoholic who thinks they can drink on the weekend. They just want more alcohol, and it just leads to a binge. And too many of these people, I mean, sure, if you're not an addict and you can have something unhealthy once or twice a month, it's no big deal. But if you're an addict, and I'm dealing in my career with all individually counseling people who are food addicts and overweight, that 5 or 10% of unhealthy substances is what derails them, and what continues their love affair with those illicit foods that they desire, that cause them to go and stop them from losing weight too. Because when people come to our retreat and stay here for a couple of months, they lose tremendous amounts of weight when they do this 100%, because it's enforced abstinence, right? They have to eat the healthy stuff. There's nothing else around. And what happens is, because of that, they better adapt to it and they like it better. The dabblers who still have the unhealthy things left, here and there, never really like the diet as much as the people who are into it fully. And we get tremendously, when their weight starts to drop and easily without an effort. We recently had a guy who lost 100 pounds in 3 months, and a woman who lost 80 pounds in 3 months, but that's the higher end of normal. And I'm not advocating that people need to lose that weight that fast or should lose weight that fast. What's more important is you lose weight slow and steady, and you keep losing weight.